back as Miami Heat season officially kicks off tomorrow, where right now on FanDuel, you can still get the Miami Heat with plus odds to make the playoffs. Right now, they're at plus 128, so make sure you get in before things are too late, because tomorrow, after they kick the Magic's ass, those odds won't be as juicy. But anyways, as you can tell, I'm very excited. I've been very busy in general, just in life. So there was a lot of content that I wanted to make before the season started. I just didn't have time for it. But I definitely had to make time for my annual video where I talk about every single player on the roster. I'll give you my predictions, tell you who I like and who I don't like, and just overall what to expect from everybody on the team. We'll go in alphabetical order. So first, I'm going to start with my guy, Bam Adebayo. I know he's got a lot of haters. I'm talking to you, Mac Tuman. On every single one of my videos, I could be talking about Tua Tagovailoa. He's saying, well, at least he's better than Bam. Listen, I don't know why Bam has so many haters, man. Like, even if it's not my guy, Mag, I have comments calling him Bambi, comments calling him Bum at a Bummo on every single video. And it's like, I get it. You know, there's a lot of flaws when it comes to Bam, and I'll be the first to acknowledge those. His lack of aggression is very aggravating to me. He refuses to take advantage of a mismatch. He has no back to the basket game. His footwork is awful. So there's a lot of things not to like, particularly that contract, because as we know, that max extension kicks in not this year, but the following year, in which he'll be making $50+ million. With his current skill set, he's definitely not worth that kind of money, but he's still a very good player. And what he is night in and night out is the best defensive player in the entire world. I don't care what the NBA GM survey says, where he didn't even get a single vote for most versatile defender. It's ridiculous. He is the most versatile defensive player in the league, bar none. And if you want to say Wemby's a better overall defender, I can't blame you, because that boy, Wemby, is nice. But you're always getting a guy who's elite on the defensive side of the ball. And then on top of that, you're getting a guy who averaged 18 points per game last year. He got as high as 20 a couple of years ago. We know he's a multiple-time All-Star. So ideally, I would like to see him be over that 20 points per game once again. But I'm not sure he's going to get to that point, just because we know Tyler Herro's out for the first month or so, but you still got Norman Powell. And then when Tyler Herro comes back, both of those guards are going to need the ball. Andrew Wiggins is going to need the ball. Nikola Jovic is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. So I feel like there's a lot of scoring to go around. So I'm not sure any guy is going to be more than, 22 points per game. Maybe Tyler Herro somewhere around there. We'll get to him. But if Bam can get you 18 to 19 points efficiently, if he can get to the free throw line 5 or 6 times a game minimum, and if he can continue to rebound the ball at a high level like he has the last few seasons, he's really averaged at least 9 rebounds a game for the last 5 or 6 years now. It looks like, 6 years. So if he can continue to do those things and continue to be an improved playmaker like he was last season, they were definitely using him as more of a playmaking hub, then he's definitely a guy that I'm optimistic about. And hey, maybe he can get to the level by next year where he's worth that max contract. But until now, he is what he is. He's not the best player on the championship team, but he's still one of the best centers in the entire NBA, or best big men. We don't know if he'll actually run center, and he is a guy that I'm still a fan of. But we know who Bam Adebayo is, so let's go ahead and move on to one of the new guys. We got Simone Fontecchio. I do want to make note that it is pronounced Simone. I will do my best to try to not call him Simone. So I want y'all to know that, because I heard him say it himself. Y'all love saying when I pronounce names wrong, which usually I do. But this one is Simone Fontecchio. You can see last year with Detroit, didn't play too much, averaged about 6 points per game, 33% from 3. That's not going to be good enough. What the Heat are going to look for him to be is, I guess, a 3-point specialist, even though he's not really what Duncan Robinson was. Of course, that was the big trade-off. The Heat lose Duncan Robinson in the sign trade. They give him Fontecchio in return. Definitely different type of players, but the Heat are still going to need Fontecchio to be closer to that 40% from 3 that he was the previous season. Or I guess the previous season, split between Detroit and Utah, because this Heat team doesn't have a lot of shooting. Tyler Herro, Norman Powell. Outside of those two guys, I wouldn't really say you have a knockdown sniper. That probably won't be Fontecchio, but at least be in the high 30s. I don't know if we can expect that. It's hard to say. Didn't play the whole preseason, missed some games. I'm not even sure how big a rotation player he'll be. When the Heat still had Haywood Highsmith, I wasn't sure if he was going to play at all. Now maybe there's some room for him. I think it depends on how well Jaquez plays, who had a really nice preseason. If Pelle Larsson can continue to develop, because I think those guys are probably higher in the pecking order right now than Fontecchio. But because of his ability to shoot the ball, there will probably be a rotation spot for him. And hey, at the end of the day, he's an Italian brethren just like me. So I got to show some love to my boy. Shout out to Simone Fontecchio. Moving on, we got one of the first two-way guys. That's going to be Myron Gardner. Nobody really stood out for the Heat in Summer League, at least in terms of the non-drafted players in years past. Of course, we know last year you had a ton between Alondes Williams and Cole Swider and Josh Christopher and Isaiah Stevens and Kashad Johnson. You had a ton, right? But this year wasn't exactly the same, so the Heat tried some things between Gabe Madsen and obviously Myron Gardner, who ended up getting the two-way. And I don't think there's a ton of potential there with Gardner. He's not one of the guys that I'm super excited about, like I were with some other two-way players in the past. But he is a versatile defensive four, fouled a lot in the preseason. So if he can get that under wraps, maybe there's a role for him in the league one day, as a versatile 3-and-D player, because he's an okay three-point shooter as well. A little hit or miss, but he's still got to develop that. Only 24 years old. So there's some time there still, but he won't get a lot of run this year. He'll be in the G League most of the year. Same with the next guy, Vlad Golden, who is also on a two-way deal. Of course, of FAU fame over here in South Florida, was on that Owls team that went to the Final Four, then went to the Michigan, had a pretty fun year with Danny Wolf over there. And I was hoping, and I think the Heat were probably hoping too, that he would be better than he has been in the preseason and in Summer League, because the Heat don't have another backup big. If Kel'el Ware starts, you got Jovic off the bench, and that's it. You lost Kyle Anderson, you lost Kevin Love, you cut Precious Achiuwa. None of those guys were as big, were that big to begin with, and you already lost them, So they were hoping Vlad could be better because he's a true 7-footer, but he's just way too slow out there. Even in garbage time of the preseason, he didn't even play, all of the minutes there. So clearly they're not very high on him. I think if another guy becomes available later in the season, maybe the Heat can poach a 7-footer from somewhere else, kind of like another Dwayne Dedman or Cody Zeller or the next guy that we like for a month, and then he becomes one of our most hated players ever. They were hoping Vlad Golden could be a rotation guy, but at this point, I don't see it that way. It's just way too slow-footed to really cover any ground on the defensive end. But he seems like a really cool guy. Seems like a really nice guy from everything I've seen. So hopefully it works out for him in Sioux Falls. And then, of course, you got Tyler Herro, the most polarizing player maybe in Heat history, maybe in South Florida sports right now. Him and Tua definitely have a lot of comparisons there. You either hate him or you love him. I guess maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I definitely love Tyler Herro. I would say that. I would say I'm a fan of his, but I don't think he could be, the first or second best player on a championship team. I don't think he's worth a max contract. His extension eligibility just ended yesterday, so he will not be extended this year. They'll have to revisit it next offseason. But I don't think you can build around a guy who gets hunted on defensively as much as he does and as ball dominant as he is as either. Because I don't know, I've always had some concerns about the fit of the playmaking. You're seeing flashes of it where he's gotten a little bit better in that area. But for the most part, he needs the ball a lot. And he's not a super efficient player. Last year he was, 47% from the field, 38% from three. But in the previous couple of years, obviously the three-point shooting has been elite. But 44% from the field, 44%, pretty much, 44% for his entire career. And I don't know, it's just hard to win around guys like that, guys that are so ball dominant when most of the best guards in the league can do both. They can get to the rim much easier than Herro can when you talk about true 1A caliber guys like an MVP of Shea or even Jalen Brunson who's able to get to the rim at an elite level, or a Trae Young who is an elite facilitator. And that's just not Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro is an elite shooter. I don't think that's worthy of a max contract. He can do some other things, a decent rebounder. Like we said, the playmaking's been improved, but doesn't get to the free throw line enough. It's just a cone on defense and, not worthy of the max contract. But hey, if they revisit this sometime next season and maybe he makes another All-Star game, whether he makes an All-Star game or not, unless we see a true jump from him, I think maybe he's worth about $35 million a year, but definitely not the $50 million a year he wants. But let me make it very clear. I do like Tyler Herro. I'm a fan of his, and I hope he succeeds. If Giannis becomes available, then I hope he succeeds in Milwaukee. I'll leave it at that. Moving on here, you got Kasparas Jakucionis. Already disappointing. Strained his groin, so he'll be out tomorrow against the Orlando Magic. He played the one preseason game, basically one game and a quarter. But in that one full game he played, we know he looked awesome, had the 10 assists, had only 3 turnovers. He's the only guy on this team that is sort of a true facilitator, and I've been very impressed with his defense throughout Summer League and in the one preseason game. He is a dog. He appears to be the epitome of Heat culture, and that's something that really surprised me, because when he was drafted, we only really thought of him as like a facilitator, that could score, certainly get to the rim, use his 6'5" frame and stuff to get to the rim, and we knew he could shoot a little bit. But I've been most impressed by his defense. I really has been. And if he is healthy, I think the only thing stopping him from getting minutes would have been his defense, and now that's not really the case. So I definitely hope he gets some run. It's just you got a little bit of a loaded guard room. Obviously, once Herro comes back, and Norman and Drew Smith, who we know Spo loves, and Davion, and do the Heat play Terry Rozier to build his trade value? I don't know. But Kasparas is that true facilitator that the Heat need. And for that reason, I hope he gets some run this year. Prior to his preseason game where he looked awesome, I didn't think he was going to play a lot. But I don't know. It's a small sample size, but I think that game alone proves that he's worthy at least of some run. So we'll see what ends up happening with him. Hopefully he can get healthy soon. Next, we got my guy, Jaquez Jr. My guy bounced back in this preseason, shot the ball 50% from beyond the arc. We know it. That's what it comes down to for Jaquez. If he's elite inside, he's great in transition, great footwork, and the elite footwork, that's what he can do. The problem is, it's hard to get to that if guys don't respect your jump shot, because then the paint is just all clogged up for you. So that's what it all comes down to. He's coming into year 3. I believe in him. He was pretty bad last year, but hey, there's a thing called a sophomore slump for a reason. A lot of guys go through it. It's how you bounce back that is really the sign of a great player. And I think he's going to bounce back because from everything we've heard, he seems like a guy that's been busting his ass all summer too. So I wonder, again, what his rotation spot's going to be. It's a little weird to the forward room, I guess, is a little weird. We've already talked about, Fontecchio and Pelle Larsson as well. So he'll definitely get some run, early on because he had such a great preseason. But I don't think he's a lock to play every single game. If Fontecchio gets out there and shoots really well, if Ham is having a rough night. So we'll see. We'll see if he takes the leap. If he takes the leap, then certainly he'll be a consistent rotation guy. But he's a guy that the Heat will need to rely on a lot for scoring because he's a bucket for sure. Last year, I was saying, hey, maybe the offense won't be so bad. You got Jaime and Terry Rozier off the bench. That didn't work out good at all. And then you got a guy, my guy, Kasparas Johnson. Still my guy. I was hyping him up as PJ Tucker with Derrick Jones Jr. athleticism. Got a standard contract through the preseason and summer league. Doesn't appear to be worth it. He still seems like a guy who's probably a two-way contract worthy. Probably not deserving of that standard deal, at least not over some other potential guys. He just didn't quite take the jump that I was hoping for, or at least is not progressing as quick as I was wishing he was, because the jump shot's still not there. The offensive versatility is still not there. Defensively, he's pretty good laterally. I wouldn't say he's elite yet, but what he is he's an elite athlete, and he's an elite in transition. And as a Heat team that wants to push pace, he helps that. But he won't get any run this year. If he's getting run, the Heat are either getting blown out or they're blowing somebody out. Moving on here, you got Nikola Jovic. Shout out to my guy for getting his extension this offseason, making about, $15 million a year. It's a gamble, because his sample size is relatively small as well, just in terms of his career, because if you look, last season only played 46 games the year before that. And then, last year he showed some signs, almost 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. But those aren't $15 million a year worthy numbers. The $15 million a year contract they gave him is based off his potential, because there's a chance he becomes a player who's worth $30 million a year. If he can really tap into his full potential, which is a 6'10", good 6'10" player with good handle, great jump shot, decent vision, could shoot the ball, score inside, pretty good in transition, just do everything he does, then of course the potential is through the roof. We know that. No ceiling, kind of like we were calling Bam a couple years ago. Or there's the potential never really works out for Jovic, still fouls too much, doesn't turn into a decent defender, and he's only worth $10 million a year. I don't know. It's not that long ago that Jovic was getting DMP coaches' decisions. It's really not that long ago. So, but, obviously I love Jovic. The potential is through the roof, and he had a pretty good preseason as well before he got a little banged up. But from what I'm reading, he will be ready to play tomorrow. And I wonder if he's going to start. That's still up in the air. First, I was thinking Jovic, and then Ware, and now Ware. He sprained his ankle in practice today, so who knows? But it'll be very interesting to see. But either way, I do hope that Jovic, when he does play, he's able to have the ball in his hands a lot, because he wants the ball in his hands. We all think he's better when he has the ball in his hands. I don't want to just see him be a corner sitter 100% of the time. Sometimes, space the floor, but not all the time. And I definitely hope we see a lineup with Jovic, Bam, and Ware. That's really what I want to see. Moving on here, you got Pelle Larsson, the Swedish Swish. He didn't really have as good a preseason as I was hoping, but he had a great summer league. Still proves that he is, what I said about him last year, is he is good at a little bit of everything with the potential to be great at everything. And I still feel that way about him because he uses his size and hustle. He is another guy who's the definition of Heat culture. He used that on the defensive end. If FanDuel had a prop for him to how many times Pelle Larsson hit the floor, I'd hit the over every single game because he's always diving on the floor for loose balls. He's pretty solid as a positional defender. Can get to the rim. He's good at drawing free throws. We'll see if he gets the respect of the officials. But he can really do everything except for shoot. Similar way that Jaquez has to develop the jumper. It's the same thing with Pelle Larsson. In the preseason, he did not show that. He did not shoot great. He hit a few. You see last year he was only 33% from three, but he's in year 2. I don't expect him to all of a sudden become a great three-point shooter. He'll need more time, but I do expect him to get some run this year solely based off the hustle that he provides, and I'm a fan of his as well. Let's move on to the next guy here, in which we got Davion. Davion, the dog, Mitchell. My guy will be in the starting lineup at least as long as Tyler Herro is out. I even think he might have started if Tyler Herro was healthy, maybe bring Norm off the bench. We don't know for sure, but he's definitely going to start now. One of my favorite players in the league, one of Heat fans' favorite players. I don't know how sustainable the three-point shooting is that we saw last year. He was at 45% from 3 on 3 attempts. Even if he comes way down from that, and if he's like 37% from 3, that's still really good. If you get a 37% three-point shooter whose assist-to-turnover ratio is decent, he's not a primary facilitator, but he's not a guy who's going to make a ton of mistakes either, and he can hit the open man. So you get the relatively efficient shooting with some playmaking ability with elite doesn't even cover it, generational perimeter defense, like legendary point of attack defense, whatever you want to call it. That's Davion Mitchell. And he's fun to watch, immediately checks in to a game and makes a play immediately, whether it's a steal, snatching a ball out of the middle of the passing lane. He's fun to watch, and he's a huge reason why I think the Heat are highly underrated this season. He's just a winning player. That's what Davion Mitchell is. I don't need to go on and on about him. I think the Heat got him re-signed this year for another 2 years. So he'll at least be here this year, next year as well, I believe, and then we'll see what happens. Same with our next guy, Norman Powell, who, of course, is on the last year of his expiring deal. Excellent trade from the Heat earlier this offseason. Was able to offload Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, get Norman Powell in return. 32 years old, so there's a lot of people thinking he's going to take some major leap. I am usually hesitant to say that a guy over 30 is going to get better, but we don't need him to get better. We just need him to replicate his last year, where he was a near all-star, 22 points per game, 42% from 3. My God, those numbers are efficient. 48% from 3 overall, and that's just a guy who is taking a lot of jumpers. Not just jumpers, though. I was very impressed with his craftiness and getting to the rim. So very tough layups, great angles to just finish all over the place. So he is more than a shooter. And defensively, I think he was okay also. You're really just hoping that he can be a step above Tyler Herro, which I would say he's more than a step above in terms of his defense. So he had an excellent preseason, can get hot quickly, and he's probably one of the few guys that Heat fans are most excited about, outside of the young guys. Outside of the young guys, he's probably who Heat fans are most excited about. We've been running it back for so damn long. He's like the new shiny toy, I'm curious to see if they end up extending him at some point, but maybe they do some kind of extension, but keep the 2027, season with a team option or something, because we know the Heat are going to have to pay Giannis and Jokic that year, and it's going to be hard for us to pay those guys and Norman Powell. So sorry, Norm, because the Heat are definitely getting Jovic and Jokic and Giannis. Maybe they don't even need those guys because we got Jovic and Ware. I don't know. Norman Powell's going to be fun to watch, though, regardless. Moving on here, we have Scary Terry Rozier. My guy said, just give him a chance. Just give him a fair chance. That's all he wants. Will he get it? Probably not. I don't think he'll be a rotation player. It'll be really funny when he does inevitably check into the game tomorrow and plays like 30 minutes. Heat fans are going to be crazy. Twitter is going to be a funny place if that happens. Do I even want to look at how bad these numbers were last year? 10 points per game on 29% from the field and 39% from three. I'll tell you what, and I'm usually hesitant to say this type of thing. He can't be worse. There's no way he could be worse, right? I don't know how that happened, that Terry Rozier. Like, when they traded the first round pick for him, I didn't hate it, but I said if that's the only move, I don't like it. It was the only move, and therefore I didn't like it. So I was kind of right on not liking the trade, but I didn't think he would be this bad. But nobody did. Obviously, nobody did. Like, he was a guy who, he scored 24 points on a bad Charlotte team, but even a guy who takes advantage of a poor team and puts up a bunch of stats, even usually if you come back down to earth, you're average. He was worse than average. He was worse than the worst. That's what Terry Rozier was last year. So, I don't know. Seems like a good team guy, though. I respect him for standing up to Amen Thompson when Thompson threw Herro to the ground. And when Jimmy Butler came back to town last year, the only people who dapped him up was Kevin Love and Terry Rozier. So, maybe Terry's just the type of guy that gets along with everyone. And if you're going to stink it up, at least be a good locker room guy. And I think Terry Rozier is. I think the gambling stuff is still under investigation, though. They said something like the NBA completed their investigation, but the FBI is still looking at it. I don't know. Who knows? He probably won't play a lot this year, and I spent way too long talking about him. Moving on to the next guy that we're going to talk about here is Drew Smith. Another my guy, Drew Smith, is a dog, baby. I obviously, I've apologized for him already because prior to last season, I was a Drew Smith hater, like most people. But I did publicly apologize because I am converted to Drew Smithyism. That's my guy. I 1,000% understand why the Heat keep bringing him back year after year. And even the fact that he was able to come back so quick from an Achilles injury a year after tearing his ACL. Like, the dude played in the preseason and played well. He was good defensively. Took some charges, hit some threes. Like, that's just a warrior, man. And those are the type of guys I want on my team. Those are the guys I want on my side, and that's Drew Smith, man. You can see last season shot very well from three also. 53% from three. Damn, that's better than very well. That's insane. It was in 14 games, so obviously that three-point shooting is not sustainable, but just like Davion Mitchell, if you can get to 37%, then that's fine. I'm really looking forward to some late games, like last defensive possession. You need a stop for the win, and the Heat throw out like Davion, Drew Smith, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware. Like, good luck. Good luck, other teams trying to score on that. That's going to be fun. Even for the other teams, like okay, let's say they got their star guard, and let's say the Heat are playing like the Knicks, and Jalen Brunson's got to deal with Davion, and then Davion gets subbed out. He's like, finally, I don't got to deal with that no more. Then he sees Drew Smith coming in, and he's got to deal with that for 48 minutes of just hounding defense. I'm hyped for that, man. I like the Heat's guard rotation. They need a facilitator, some more shooting for sure, but I like the defense they bring with those two. I really, really do. I'm a fan of Drew Smith for life. Moving on here, we have Kel'el Ware. It kind of sucks. He sprained his ankle. They need him desperately tomorrow versus the Magic, who are a super huge team. But hey, we know what it is with him. Spo called him out a couple times, once in the summer league, once in the preseason, and he answered the bell every single time. Had double-digit rebounds every game in the preseason, and that's what we should expect from him. We know, Kel'el Ware is very skilled and unique offensively. We saw him hit step-back threes, turnaround fades. He has great touch around the rim. Just for a guy of his height and athleticism, have such soft touch in that push shot should really not be understated. And we know what he does athletically, dunking on people and stuff, but some nights he might get 10 shots. Some nights he might get one. Some nights he may get, 4 threes off. Sometimes he may not shoot any. But what he needs to do every single night is rebound the ball, and I think that's what Spoelstra's looking for. Spoelstra doesn't see Kel'el Ware hit 3 threes and say, wow, he had a good game. He wants to see Kel'el Ware set hard screens, roll hard to the rim, cut without the ball, get offensive rebounds, get double-digit rebounds in general, and I think Kel'el Ware has done a really good job of that in the preseason. And if he continues to do that, there really should be no reason he doesn't start every game and finish every game. We know Bam Adebayo wants to play with him. I want to see Bam play with him because Bam is so elite on the perimeter, But you can't put Bam on the perimeter, I'm talking defensively, if every time Bam gets a stop, the other team gets a rebound because, I don't know, you got Drew Smith playing center. I was going to say Hayward Highsmith. They don't got him no more. Kashad Johnson playing center, So I do think having Kel'el Ware really helps just everything, offensively and defensively. And it certainly takes a lot off of Bam's shoulders. And if you got that much money invested into Bam, you should be playing the guys that make it easiest for him. And Kel'el Ware is that. And he's probably the guy I'm most excited to see play this year, just out of everybody. And I hope we see him tomorrow. And then we got Andrew Wiggins, who I am also expecting a much improved year from last season. We know he got traded last year, 1 week after his child was born. I can't imagine how tough that was on him. He had to deal with that in addition to some other personal stuff that was going on. We made jokes about he never smiled, didn't look like he wanted to be here. But hey, I wouldn't be smiling either if I was going through what he was going through, But you're seeing him in this training camp. He's all smiles, seems very happy to be there. And in theory, he is a perfect fit for what the Heat need. Let's say everyone's healthy. You got the shooting of Herro and Norman Powell. You got the defense of Bam. You got the rebounding and athleticism, Kel'el Ware. You need kind of a Swiss Army knife, versatile 3-and-D wing, and that's Andrew Wiggins. And at his best, he is elite at that. We've seen him thrive with the Warriors playing next to superstars. I don't think that he'd have a superstar, but they got a couple of all-stars, a couple of all-star caliber players. So if you put that all together, that's how I think you're looking at a pretty solid team. He's got to stay healthy. Only played 17 games for the Heat last year after the trade. Missed quite a few, but people remember his time with the Heat as last year is not great. The playoffs were awful. And even then, he still averaged 19 points per game. 46% from field, 36% from three. So he showed flashes even going through all that stuff. And now that he's just in a better headspace, I do expect a much better year from him. Finally, the last guy that we're going to talk about here is the new addition, Jamir Young, who they just signed to the final two-way spot. There was a few guys we were debating, because we did a whole video dedicated to Jamir Young. If you're a Heat sicko, a basketball sicko like me, you can go check out that. But I was thinking maybe Trevor Keels. I thought maybe Gabe Madsen. I like Jamir Young because if you're not familiar with him, he's a pretty good ball-dominant guard who's very shifty. And the thing that I like about him most is he's elite at getting into the paint, creating that dribble penetration and kicking out the open shooters. So I like that about his game a lot. The actual three-point shooting is iffy. You're not exactly going to get that from him. But he's a pretty solid creator and finisher inside. But it's just with these two-way guys, it's like, you almost have to have role-playing skills in order to get minutes. Because if he comes into the game, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to take the ball out of Tyler Herro's hands? You're going to take it out of Norman Powell's hands, out of Bam's hands? It's just not going to happen. Without the ball, because he's not a great shooter, Jamir Young is really not a threat. But hey, maybe there's some point in January where a few guys are banged up, some guys get in foul trouble, maybe he gets a few minutes, he can be sort of a playmaker and get some rim pressure. Because right now, the only guys on the Heat that really get rim pressure is Kasparas, who's hurt now, Terry Rozier, who's not going to play because he stinks, and then, Tyler a little bit, and Bam a little bit, So Jamir Young does sort of provide something in that regard that they don't have a lot of. But, I'm not sure him or any of the other two-way guys, Vlad Golden or Myron Garner, are going to be here at the end of the season. And in terms of overall predictions, I still have the Heat as the 4th seed, but they could really finish as low as 10. It would not shock me if they finish anywhere from 4 to 10. The reason I'm giving them the edge at number 4 is just because you got Eric Spoelstra. And I think that alone, along with some pretty good talent on this roster, is enough to make you better than a lot of the teams below you. Because I think the top 3 locks in some order is Cavs, Knicks, and Magic. Outside of that, you got a Mod Podge of teams with the Bucks and the Hawks and the Pistons and the 76ers, and I think the Heat fit somewhere in that group. So I just gave them benefit of the doubt and put them at number 4. But that's all I got to say for this video, y'all. Let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with, and who you're most excited to watch down in the comments below. I'm very excited to go to the game tomorrow, where right now on FanDuel, you can get the Miami Heat at plus 290 to win. That's some pretty juicy odds, so I'm gonna have to partake. And remember, I'm gonna be at the game, and the Heat have a very good winning percentage when I'm in attendance, so keep that in mind when you log on to FanDuel. I'll actually be staying in Orlando for a couple of days, so maybe I'll get a video out after the game if I get some vlog footage or something like that. And then I think they have another game 2 days later versus Memphis. I'll still be in Orlando, but if I have some time, I'll get together a post game or something like that. But once I return, we'll be back to your regularly scheduled programming with post games after every single game. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Also like this video because your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.